I'm not quite sure that I can convey my feelings for Arc Raiders as best as I possibly can. In the most chill way, it is my most anticipated game of the year, and I know that may be an odd take for someone covering multiple games simultaneously with upcoming releases, and amidst a sea of phenomenal games that have released thus far this year, but something about that retro-futuristic, post-apocalyptic aesthetic, combining third-person looter-shooter mechanics with an extraction game loop and things like RPG class and character building elements mixed with lore-based quest lines and upgrades. I mean, it's a game that's just navigating such a strange yet cool mashup of pieces of so many different elements that, having played during the latest Tech Test 2 in April, it was just an incredibly fun experience. Plain and simple, I had a ton of fun during that period, and since have been looking forward to every scrap of information that we can get about returning to Speranza and Topside. Lucky for us, it's been a while since we talked about Embark's upcoming project, and since then, there's been a bit more revealed to us that we can take a look at. So, nearly 2 months after our last discussion on Arc Raiders, Embark has dropped a bit of clues as to what to expect over the community Discord. 3 things in particular that we'll talk about here today, but the most recent of this details a bit of what they're doing for the players' social elements per se. Dusty, the community lead for Embark, posted an update recently that mentioned, "We're making room for you in Speranza," quite literally. Here's an update from our team on what to expect when it comes to lodging. As every experienced raider knows, the abandoned wilderness of the Rust Belt is vast and unforgiving. Missions topside are necessary, but even the tireless raider needs a place to lay their bruised head and all their souvenirs after a long day of gunning down Arc. Enter the Raider Den. Shawnee will be kind enough to lend you a cozy bedroom to call your own. Well, cozy might be stretching it. Bedroom too. When you arrive, you'll be greeted with a metal cot, peeling decorations, and a door frame with a notable lack of door. But hey, it's better than living topside. Fortunately, you won't have to live in squalor forever. As you progress through Arc Raiders, your den will progress with you. As players ourselves, we know how rewarding it is for you to visually see the progress your raider is making and the loot they're accumulating. So our intention with the den is to do just that. Trinkets you find topside will load the floors and the shelves of your den. Your best guns will probably be displayed on the walls, and your raider den screen will be a living representation of your progress. Your highest value items will be proudly displayed on your shelves, even if the most valuable thing you own at the moment is 15 rubber ducks. Think of the den as a bird's nest for all your trinkets, old world oddities, guns, and fancy weapon attachments. We plan to continue refining the den, and we'll also try to get some of those mystery stains off the wall before you get here. So while we don't have a social nature of Speranza like a no combat social hub you could walk around or anything, this will allow for that player to show off their yields throughout their career. Lining your shelves with your most prized items, this now seemingly giving more weight to some of those things you may find that are seemingly trivial topside, like the mixtapes that I had promptly, at the time, sold for extra cash because dang, did they go for a lot of money. The statues and trophies you could find, the rubber ducks, and all. Not to mention showcasing some of that weaponry you find as well. My question, I guess, for the weaponry and that would be, if you showcase that, is it going to have like a locked cold storage type of situation, meaning that like you can put those high tier things that you don't really want to risk on the wall without sacrificing any of your stash? But at the same time, that might defeat the purpose of the stash limit in that case. So who knows? Anyways, also, what's about those mystery stains? Like, I feel like that has to be a big nothing burger or some sort of teaser of some kind, but it's too pixelated to make anything out if you try and blow it up and examine it further. Optimistically though, as this being a starting point for our discussion here, I think this is a good sign to be showing this off. We saw how the core gameplay felt and played, and I genuinely think that Tech Test 2 back in April was one of the most fluid and well-optimized technical tests that I'd ever played. It was genuinely impressive at the graphical fidelity, frame performance to go along with that, and everything happening in the world. It felt like a living, true environment that I was involved in. I had high hopes, just like everyone else, that they were so confident that maybe they'd launch it around Summer Game Fest 2 months ago. But knowing that that's not the case and that we have an October 30th release date now at this point, I genuinely think that these types of things are a good sign. They're polishing up and posting about the minor details at this point, focusing on the extracurricular things. So that should hopefully point towards, okay, well, the core has to be stellar at this point, right? Especially after how good it was in the tech tests. That's just, again, maybe me being optimistic, but besides that, about a month ago at this point, they detailed quite a bit about the extraction methods and upcoming changes to things like hatches. Bear with me, this is quite the long post, but they said Arc Raiders is at its core a game about taking risks, balancing risk and reward, or what we call high stakes. That's a standard practice in game design, but it finds its peak in the Rust Belt. It's the cornerstone of our gameplay mechanics, and those high stakes influence everything from your items you bring in, the noises you make, the fights you pick, and the places you dare to go. The dangers you face and the choices you make to overcome them should always feel worth the rewards they yield. In a session of Arc Raiders, the clearest way to communicate risks is through the map screen. It highlights areas where you can expect to run into greater Arc threats, either through numbers or types, but have high concentrations of valuable loot. Players naturally gravitated towards these hotspots, often leading to encounters with our raiders. From data in Tech Test 2, we could see these high-risk areas were doing their job. They drew in more traffic, provided the best loot opportunities, and generated more player collisions. We did find some discrepancies that are being improved on now, like locked rooms that didn't provide enough value for the rarity of their keys and the difficulty of getting into them. We also saw high-risk areas which had great loot without matching Arc presence. We're adjusting Arc spawns to give players a suitable challenge if they get there first. The data also revealed unexpected hotspots, places we didn't intend to be frequented by our players. We're investigating what drew players to those areas to find out what made them interesting. Rather than trying to remove those points, we're working on applying additional level design to enhance and embellish them as worthwhile areas to play in. An example of something we utilize when trying to analyze and understand player behavior are heat maps, like the one pictured on screen, which showcases player movement through activity in DAM for the duration of Tech Test 2. Tools like these help us to determine where the majority of the activity took place and enable us to balance the risk and reward of each area appropriately. This is just one of the ways that we can use a heat map. For example, comparing this to the heat maps of Arc behavior can help us determine places where the threat is too high or too low. We also maintain heat maps for spawns, deaths, loot action, Arc spawns, Arc death, PvP damage, PvE damage, extraction starts, successes and failures, and so much more. As we continue our journey toward launch, insight like this is vital to making sure we ship the best possible version of Arc Raiders. One thing that I really enjoy out of this first initial portion of the message is the mention that they are adjusting things accordingly. Whereas there are things that may have been unintended hot zones, they're not necessarily deleting any reason to go there, but instead rewarding players for going there in the future with the launch of the game. It seems like a lot of design we see in games sometimes where it kind of tries to push players away from areas if it's not necessarily what was intended, whereas this, it just brings the value up in those cases. So big fan of how that is being handled, but they continued on to say another high stakes situation in every trip topside is how you find your way back to Speranza. It's time to extract, and once again you'll turn to the map. Our main extraction points have no direct cost to use, but they draw a lot of attention from both Arc and other players. The longer you stay in a session, the number of available extractions steadily diminishes. Ultimately, it's up to the player to decide whether to chase more rewards at the cost of fewer and riskier ways out, or to escape safely with lighter bags. Of course, there is another way to extract: Raider hatches. Hatches require hatch keys, which must be purchased, crafted, or found. The cost of using hatches means that we can make them relatively quiet, quick, and place them in areas with less foot traffic. From data from Tech Test 2, we saw that these hatches were a very popular choice. In fact, high-level players used hatches at a whopping 40% of the time. This is far more often than intended, and hatches, while safer, are also just more boring to use as they provide a 3-for-1 deal when extracting with a squad. We want heart rates to go up when trying to extract, and that can't happen when you can always quietly drop into a hole under the ground. This means we need to rethink how hatch keys are acquired and make sure that using one is a choice that needs to be carefully weighed, not something you can rely on for every extraction. Leading up to launch, we'll continue to refine and balance extractions, loot areas, spawn locations, drone compositions, and many other things that one can encounter topside. A well-balanced mix of risk and reward is at the core of what the heart-pounding experience we plan to deliver with Arc Raiders. Every decision you make and every second you spend outside of Speranza should feel important, because each one could seal your fate. So this is something that, while it is something that you might not agree with initially, having played a lot of Arc Raiders in that Tech Test 2, that's definitely something that I notice as well. I was using towards the end, whenever we were starting to get set up and everything and have enough playtime to end up either crafting or looting things off of dead bodies, off of Arc machines. Those keys were very common, and they did make extracting a lot simpler. As you progress through that gameplay experience, you started to notice that you're not going to those higher contested zones for extraction. You were just going straight for the hatches. So for this, in the design element of making those high risk, high reward situations, I understand what they're saying here with this. It'll definitely be something that I will, probably have a couple of more encounters that I won't quite like the outcome of, but that's the nature of the game at that point, and is something that seems to be like with launch, we might just see lesser spawns and more funneling towards those extraction points. And the final bit of information that we have is now a little outdated in the initial messaging because Gamescom is still going on, but the big festivities of Opening Night Live have already happened. The team said last week, the team here in Stockholm is in full gear getting ready for the release on October 30th. Our focus is now on polishing and expanding the experience and putting all the learnings from Tech Test 2 into action ahead of release. Just so you know, we're not planning additional public tests before launch. We've learned from our last announcement that it was crucial to keep expectations in check. So we also want to be clear that we won't be at Gamescom. But don't worry, our launch campaign will kick off before you know it. We'll have many more updates for you in the lead up to launch. Thank you for all the support and encouragement you've been sending our way. It means the world. So unfortunately, while we don't have any playtests upcoming, and it doesn't seem like there's been anything announced for a closed test behind closed doors or even at that point, the long wait until October 30th continues. But we should start to see things ramp up in terms of promotion, probably sometime soon. There's a theory right now going on with some of the recent lore drops for the finals that might connect and link the games via a shared universe, that there might be some cross promotion that starts here with this. In my headcanon, the finals, a digital battleground for the elite to watch for their own enjoyment, is either the start or the end point of whatever happened with Arc Raiders. Like, while the rest of the world is in ruin, forcing everyone underground while scavenging the Rust Belt, the finals either takes place as an escape for those who are fortunate enough to be able to pretend that that stuff doesn't happen, or oppositely, maybe it's something that actually leads to the rise of the Arc machines and then dooms humanity. Either I think would be so freaking cool to me. Again, just headcanon and what I imagine to be happening. But some people think this new CNS teaser that was recently showcased for the finals is part of that somehow. But beyond the lore teasers, we also should start to see things escalate here in terms of the speed for promotions, the frequency at which we start to see more information for Arc Raiders as we get closer and closer to the reveal. We've been seeing a sort of increased pacing already. On June 27th, that was the combat update. A month and 2 days later on July 29th, that's when we got the extraction and balancing update from Embark. 13 days after that, we got the update that they won't be at Gamescom, and just 10 days later, yesterday when this was announced, we got the update of the Den and how things are going to be working with that. So perhaps we're on the lookout for more details and updates starting in about a week or so, but that also may be a bit too ambitious in hopes. The finals is about to have like 2.5 weeks left on season 7, so we might get one more update before that, but also I'm not quite expecting that because Embark's probably going to turn their focus to starting the marketing for their season 8. But after that, maybe that's when things start to pick up. Mid-September to late September, we start to see things really focus on, now that Season 8 and the most recent update for the finals is out there, well then they focus on the upcoming product launch just about a month and a half after that. So we are going to start seeing things pick back up here. Wanted to put Arc Raiders back on your radar because my goodness am I excited for it, but very much liking what we've heard so far in this sort of dry spell for what we've seen for the game, but again, cannot express my excitement for what we're going to be seeing here upcoming, leading into launch. But that is, we're going to wrap it up. Just want to fill you guys in because it has been about 2 months since we last talked about Arc Raiders, and it is one of those things that, being it is my most anticipated game here of 2025, man, I just want to talk about it with you guys. I'm excited. Hopefully you guys are as well. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts down below, and make sure to subscribe for more Arc Raiders and other FPS content. I'd love to have you in the community. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care, and peace.